The great Al Sacko is with us. And when I call him the great Al Sacko, I am stealing a little bit from my old partner, Gary Radnich. But Al Sacko is a great follow on X. And I would encourage all of you to follow him at Al Sacko, SACCO 49. And he covers the Niners. He used to work for Odyssey Sports. He's based back east. He's very level headed. I always love talking Niners with him, and he's with us on the Uma guest line to talk Niners. What's up, Al? How are you?
Larry, how you doing, man? Thanks for having me on.
Oh man, always great to hear from you. And why don't you weigh in on the Aiyuk thing? He's more, I don't know, more cryptic tweets, and either I'm not good at analyzing them, or to me it just sounds like a guy who's unhappy or bored, or maybe both. What's your read on his latest cryptic tweet, or have you seen it?
I did see it, and I just feel like with Aiyuk, at what point are you tone deaf? Do you not understand that when you put these things out there, it drives a narrative, and the team clearly doesn't like what he's doing. I mean, even if you go back to the contract negotiations or the holdout or whatever you want to call it, he didn't handle himself well. I mean, I don't think you could really dispute that with the things with the Commanders on social media and everything else. He just didn't really handle it well, and it seemed like the Niners were ready to move on. Kyle Shanahan makes a last-second effort to keep him, and they ended up giving him a contract that it seems like they immediately regretted. Now, Aiyuk comes in, and was coming off a fantastic season. And if the blocking holds up in the Super Bowl, maybe he ends up catching the winning touchdown. Who knows? But comes off a great season, and after he gets the contract, he wasn't productive. Now, you could say he played better on film than the stats, whatever you want to say, fine. But he wasn't productive, and then he has the unfortunate injury. Now it seems like the Niners would still love to get rid of him. He's still kind of running his mouth and whatever else, to the point where I don't know what it entailed, but I've read that Frank Gore pulled him aside at practice and was talking to him, and Terrell Owens and guys like that. So you would assume that they're saying, hey, we need you on this team, and they do need him. But now where do they go with this, Larry? So if you look at his contract, he signed the 4-year deal, but after 2026, there's an out in the contract, and his 2027 cap number is $41 million. He's never seeing that. Now, I think the Niners would probably like to move on from him before then, but no team is going to take him on with that contract, not knowing what he's going to come back from a pretty serious injury with. So I think you're going to see him on the team this year. Whenever he comes back, we'll see how he plays, and then next year, who knows? But the thing with it is, Larry, if you look at the 49ers, they need him. They absolutely need him on offense. If you look at who else is there, I really love Juwan Jennings. He's a gamer. He's in the last year of his contract. What happens there? Ricky Pearsall, we don't know yet. And then after that, it's guys like Jacob Cowing, who there's been good reports in OTAs, but again, he's unproven. Watkins, who knows with the rookie. And then, you have Demarcus Robinson is just, kind of a short-term vet. They need Brandon Aiyuk for the long term. So they better sit down with him and figure this out, or, move on and figure something else out. But the receiver would become, I think, a pretty big need if Brandon Aiyuk either isn't healthy or not on this team.
To me, I quickly started, a couple of weeks ago, drew the connection to the Commanders, because it seems like Aiyuk's dream is, he called Jaden Daniels, what he said, he said he was better than, he said he was better than Purdy, or I forget exactly what he said. He said he was the best young quarterback, or I forget exactly what he said, but he loves Jaden Daniels. He said that Jaden Daniels could take his game to the next level. I did find it interesting. I'm not trying to stir it up at all, but I did find it interesting that Brock Purdy visited George Kittle in Nashville. I don't know that he visited, Aiyuk, who's technically his number one receiver. I don't remember Aiyuk sending any social media way to go Brock when he signed for the $265 million. So I just kind of wonder about that whole relationship as well. If Washington would take Aiyuk in a 4th-round pick for Terry McLaurin, I would drive him to SFO.
Oh, 100%. 100%. But I don't – it's just interesting because obviously Aiyuk is disgruntled. The 49ers haven't – it's not like they've come out and said, yeah, we love him. He's our guy. It's like they kind of talk around it all the time, right? John Lynch is kind of rubbing the back of his head and, oh, well, we got to save money and everything else. So I think both of them, if they could, wouldn't – looking at it from the outside looking in, it seems like both of them would not mind the separation. but just the injury is the thing. Who is going to trade for him, not knowing how he's going to come back? And listen, if the Niners can get Terry McLaurin, I mean, I think he's just a phenomenal player. And you saw what he did with a good quarterback last year when he finally got one, Jaden Daniels. You know, McLaurin was an impact player. You know, I know he wants a new deal as well. Would the 49ers be willing to do that? But it would be a good trade. But again, I can't see why the Commanders not knowing what Aiyuk is going to give them. And also, the Commanders want to compete right now. If they trade for Brandon Aiyuk, when is he ready? You know, are they going to say,
you know? All your points are salient points. I would just think the positive is that Daniels would get his handpicked receiver, right? And you're right. You know, the Commanders also have a little pressure on them to sign Terry McLaurin, and I don't know that they want to sign Terry McLaurin. He's a couple years older than Aiyuk. The Niners may just want to get out from under the Aiyuk deal. Maybe they would trade for McLaurin and not extend him and just let him walk at the end of the year. I don't know. It's just to me it seems at least worth throwing out there, at least throwing it out there as an idea, because it seems like McLaurin's not happy with the Commanders, and it seems like Aiyuk's not happy with the 49ers. Now, 3 weeks from now, 5 weeks from now, whenever camp starts in late July, we're going to have a bunch of people saying, oh, Aiyuk's thrilled. But they've already kind of referenced the fact that they're, you know, like they're a family, and that sometimes in families you have internal strife and there are spats, and then you kiss and make up and move on. Okay, but it sounds like the Niners are kissing and making up. It doesn't sound like Aiyuk wants to kiss and make up. And if you don't want to kiss and make up, and everybody else is looking ahead and you're looking back and you're thinking negative thoughts, it might be the best move to try to get him out of the room. I'm not saying it makes sense on the cap or that it's an easy thing to do, but it may make sense to try to move him if he really is discontented here. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and it is, and he just, like with what he said today, it's always something. Like at some point, does someone sit him down and say, listen, just stay off social media, man. You know, just keep it in-house. But he doesn't seem like he either doesn't get that or doesn't want to do that. So at some point, yeah, you just wonder when it comes to a head in what's going to happen. Because, you know, look, the Niners this year, I would think their goals are to still get in the playoffs, you know, despite kind of the holes on defense and relying on rookies. There are still a lot of those core guys there, those stars, those veterans, George Kittle, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey. So, you know, their goal is to probably get into the postseason. And, you know, you don't want distractions. You want guys who want to be there. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah. I mean, I would say to him, hey, look, I mean, let's look at this for what it is. You caught the touchdown from Brock Purdy that got the Niners past the Lions and into the Super Bowl. You are, of the two big-name receivers, the guy that got the contract and is sticking around. And yet, do the fans like you more today than they did 3 years ago or less? And it seems like it's less. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe, and I don't want to speak for the fans because I know there's fans driving around listening to KNBR right now going, Krug, you don't speak for me. I love Aiyuk. I think Aiyuk's, you know, whatever, the bee's knees or whatever the heck you want to say. But, you know, I get the sense from reading the comments on social media. Now, maybe that's an extra negative crowd there. It is what it is. But the comments seem to be like, dude, we're tired of this dude. You know, good riddance.
Yeah.
Like, go move on. You know, it's like I'm tired of rooting for this guy. You know, it's like I don't know. I kind of feel like he's overplayed his hand a little bit. I felt like he overplayed his hand a little bit in those contract negotiations, and he seems like he's still kind of overplaying his hand. We'll see. I don't think he has any problems in the room, right? Like that would be my first concern. If he had problems in the room, there was 5 or 6 guys in the room that just didn't want him there. That'd be a totally different deal. I don't think that's the deal. I think every guy in that room likes this guy, appreciates this guy. I don't think it's about the guys in the room. So, you know, it's not like he has to go. But it just seems like, dude, are you happy or you're not happy? You got paid. You're still not happy. You've been to the Super Bowl with this team. You're still not happy. You got a franchise quarterback who's in his prime. You're still not happy. You got one of the best play callers in the sport. You're still not happy. You got weapons all around you. You're still not. I mean, when are you going to be happy? So I don't know.
And that contract they gave him was clearly to make him part of the next window, right? One of the core pieces for the next window, for the Brock Purdy window. So they invested in him in that. And I think you're right about in the room. I saw a recent article that he was, involved in meetings and being a leader inside the room, and that's what you want. That's what you want to see. So that part of it is huge. But again, like you said, it's a veteran laden team. I think that if there were issues, those guys would speak up and maybe, something does happen there. But also with the fans, I still think that the 49ers need a healthy Brandon Aiyuk badly. And I've been pretty vocal about that. And I agree with you with the fans. The fans are coming in, and maybe it's Juwan Jennings' emergence or whatever it is, but they're like, you know what? Get rid of him. He doesn't want to be here. Good riddance. I think a lot of the fans are frustrated. And again, just the way he's handled things, the way he handled the contract when he did come back, the production last year before he got hurt, and now the way that he's handling some things this offseason. I think it has turned off a lot of fans. I'm not saying every fan, but I do think it has turned off a certain portion of the fan base.
Al Sacko with us on the UMA guest line as we chop it up on Niners Nightly Talking Niners. All right, what is your biggest concern for the year that lies ahead as we sit here on the 23rd of June?
I think for me, it's relying on so many rookies on defense. So they're going to have to rely on up to 6 rookies on defense this year, it looks like. If they had a great draft, 3 of those guys hit, right? I mean, if you have a good draft, you hit on 50% of your picks. Take those 6 players on defense. If 3 of them are good, great. You did pretty well. Well, they need the other 3 to be good. And I just don't see how that can happen this season. Eventually, can a few of these guys go into roles and they can add around them? Sure, but it's going to be really difficult to do that with the rookies, especially the defensive tackles. They may have the worst defensive tackle roster in the league. You have Kalia Davis, you have Jordan Elliott, who are rotational backup guys. I like Evan Anderson a lot, but again, he's an undrafted free agent. He was more of a backup last year. Let's see what he can do. And then you'll see with the 2 rookies, Weston Collins. But there's some injuries there too already, so you're relying on that group. That's really tough to do. And then the safeties, my God, if Mustafa's not there, that's a really thin group. You're pretty much relying on special teamers and backups, depending on what people think of Jair Brown. So that's going to be tough for Robert Saleh. And I'm a huge Robert Saleh guy, but Robert Saleh still needs the pieces around him. It's an upgrade coordinator-wise for sure, and he's obviously a terrific defensive coach. But if you look at Robert Saleh's career, he's had a top 10 defense points scored-wise twice in his career, and he's been 17th or lower 4 times. He has 1 winning record as a head coach or defensive coordinator in 7 full seasons. Is that because he's a bad coach? No. It's because if you look at it, when he first started with the Niners, they were rebuilding, and then 2019 was the only winning season, and then they were hurt in 2020, a lot of injuries and everything else. And then he goes to the Jets where there's roster issues, and there's also they had no offense to speak of. But my point is, he just can't snap his fingers and make this work. You still need players, and I think the Niners are going to be able to score points on offense if they stay healthy. I think they'll be fine. But expecting him to come in and take all these rookies and have a top 10 defense, it's not realistic. I think he's a huge upgrade coordinator-wise. I think he's the type of person you want to get these guys to develop. But John Lynch said himself, they're going to take some lumps this year, and I think he was referring to the defense. And it's going to be a couple-year thing, 2-3-year thing to hopefully get this defense up and going. But when that happens, is Bosa still going to be in his prime? Is Warner still going to be in his prime? You figure Lenore will. But those 3 guys are going to be huge this year, and God forbid if any of those 3 guys go down. It's going to be a little scary if they don't have those 3 cornerstone pieces on the field at any point this season.
Let me give you 10 veterans that I think are going to get cut. Okay.
Okay.
Now, this is just a guess, and obviously it's June 23rd. But 10 veterans that were on the team last year that I think are going to get cut this year. Patrick Taylor, Ross Dwelly. Technically, he wasn't on the team last year, but he's a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
Braden Willis, Jake Tongas, Nick Zakel, which is going to be a tough one because that's Brock Purdy's best buddy. Jake Moody, Kalia Davis, Robert Beal, Curtis Robinson, and George Odom. I think you got 10 guys there. Outside of Ross Dwelly, they were all on the team last year. Dwelly has been a veteran on this team in past years. I think all 10 of those guys are going to get beat out for roster spots. Taylor by, either Kiner, Jordan James, Abanaconda, anybody. Garendo. Tight end, I think Mason Pline gets that 3rd job over Dwelly, Willis, and Tongas. I think Connor Colby, Moss, some of those interior guys take Zakel's opportunity away from him. I'll say Greg Joseph beats out Jake Moody. There's a guy named Sebastian Valdez from undrafted free agent that I think is going to take Kalia Davis's job. Robert Beal, watch for that. Robert Beal and Curtis Robinson, I think, are going to get beat out. I like some of the young linebackers, Stone Blanton, Nick Martin, and I think George Odom. I know he's a safety who also has got special teams ability, but with no Mustafa and Brown dinged up, I think they brought in Pinnock, they brought in Richie Grant, they've got Marquise Siegel. I think Odom, unless there's some injuries, I think Odom might get cut at the cut down in late August. Anybody on that list, you go, absolutely not. That guy's got to be on the team.
No, I think everything you said is fair, and especially when you look at Odom, I mean, Boyer's certainly putting his stamp on the team, special team-wise, and they're letting him do it. So you would think a lot of these guys that they brought in that are special teamers are his guys. But the Niners, everybody you mentioned who was on the team or a veteran, the Niners are in this weird spot where they're not rebuilding, but they're definitely turning the page onto another chapter while still holding on to these. They still have these stars, Kittle and Warner and Bosa and McCaffrey and all these stars that are getting up there a little bit or been on the team. But while they're still here, they're turning the page with a lot of rookies and sort of retooling. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this team does. Are they going to take their lumps? Are they going to be able to contend because they still have so many high-end players? They're just in a weird spot of bringing in, like you said, maybe getting rid of some of these vets and bringing in some of these younger guys to see what they can do while still trying to win with their stars. And I'm really interested to see how it's going to work and if it's going to work. Because if you told me they went 11-6 this year, I'd say okay. If you tell me they go 7-10 this year, I'd say okay. I really don't know. We have to see which way it goes and how some of these young players do. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a turning of the tide for sure, and we're going to start to see some maybe names that we're familiar with, like you said, not be on the team anymore. We're in favor of some young guys that they're looking for in the next chapter.
All right, let's hit a couple quick hitters on your way out the door here. Give me a dark horse candidate that we're not banking on that you think is going to make the 49er roster next month.
Oh, man, to make the roster? I'll tell you what.
Anybody that you think, okay, man, we're not talking about this guy, but this guy's going to make the team. Anybody you can think of?
I think that running back always comes to my mind, and you just mentioned Kiner. That's his name, right?
Yep, Corey Kiner.
Because the Niners are so good at finding these running backs, and I think again when you look at that position, McCaffrey, if he's healthy, obviously is going to be on the field, but he's been injured. He's getting older. What's going to happen if maybe he's not on the team next year? Maybe he falls off. We don't know. So you look at running back. They have James. They have Kiner. I like Guerrero as a change of pace guy, but he's been hurt all the time. He's not somebody that I feel like you could really rely on. So one of those two guys, James or Kiner, I think can really emerge this year to be. Can they be the type of guy, maybe like an Eli Mitchell that you didn't see coming, and all of a sudden is the lead back on the team? I would say that. I also think it's not necessarily a dark horse, but watch the receiver position again, because especially if they don't have Aiyuk, they need to identify some guys that can be long-term fixes at wide receiver. They haven't re-signed Juwan Jennings yet. I don't know what their thought process is there. We know Pearsall was the first-round pick. Watkins, keep an eye on Jacob Cowing this year. That's a guy that I really have my eyes on, because he's got a lot of speed. Great things about him at OTAs that he took a big step. Kyle Shanahan said it. Keep your eyes on him because they need someone to step up at wide receiver. And if he shows out, he's someone that maybe Kyle Shanahan could find a lot of interesting ways to use.
Yeah, no, that's a great call. And I've been one of the guys singing his praises in minicamp as well, because last year all you saw was the front of his jersey. He had a hard time keeping his feet. He was too weak. He just didn't look right. This year, all you see is the back of the jersey. He's making big plays. He's added strength. He's got hand strength. He's got foot strength. He looks good. He looks really, really good. Jacob Cowing, I expect him to be good this year. I like that one. All right. How about this? Give me the player that's going to bust out. I'm going to go Isaac Guerendo. I personally think Guerendo has real star capability. I think he potentially could be not just a good player or even a very good player. I think he could be an outstanding player.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. If he could stay on the field, he showed a lot of burst last year. He showed that he could have some big plays. My guy, if he can get back on the field and be healthy, I just thought Mustafa was primed for a huge season this year. He was the second year guy that I thought was going to come in under Robert Saleh, and I thought just get unleashed. Because these guys like a missile coming from that safety position. He's somebody that I think that if he's healthy, I think he's going to have a huge impact, and they really need him on this defense. Now we'll see when he's going to come back, but he's been the guy for me since until I heard about the unfortunate injury. I said, you know what, he's going to take a huge step this year, and I think he can be the next star on defense. So I'm still gonna be positive and say that he's going to be healthy, and I think he's going to be a guy by the end of the season that you're going to say, all right, he can be a cornerstone guy there for us.
Jaylen Ramsey. Yes or no? He wants to play on the West Coast. He wants to play for a winner. The Rams seem like they're not interested. That leaves the Niners and the Chargers. The Niners have the second most cap room of any team in the sport. He can play outside corner, slot corner. He claims he can play free or strong safety. The Niners clearly don't know exactly. I'll say this. One thing I don't like about their Niner plan thus far is I don't like the idea of taking Diamador Lenore, where he's great as the slot corner, and putting him outside for a third-round draft choice who's 5'8". But if you could, if you had Jaylen Ramsey, and now you can play Ramsey outside, and you can play Demo in the slot, and let Upton Stout, to be a rookie and play off the bench like every other rookie, I think that's a smarter play. I would do it to block him from the Rams. I would do it because I think a guy like Ramsey could fill in a number of spots, and you don't know which one you're going to need. I would say yes to Ramsey, but there's a big financial deal there.
Well, again, I feel like, what do they really want to do this season? Do they consider themselves playoff contenders? Because if they do, 100% you bring Ramsey in, because you're relying on, like I said, so many rookies on defense. You need good veteran players still. God forbid if Lenore goes down. I mean, take a look at that secondary, the depth chart in the secondary if he's not there. So I think you can bring in a guy like Ramsey. I think I like to see them bring in a veteran safety. Well, any kind of veteran guy that they can add after cutdowns or free agents that are still out there. I think they should do it if they're serious about contending this season, because I don't think you can go into a year with as many holes as they have on defense, with as many rookies as you're relying on, and really say, yeah, we're a Super Bowl contender. They need to bring in some more vets, I feel like, at this point, to really say, yeah, our defense is there. We can compete with the Eagles and the Lions and some of the better teams in the NFC. I don't think you can look at that defense right now and say that they can. So I'm all for bringing in any veteran that can help at this point.
Two last ones. Which camp battle do you think is going to be fiercely contested? Which is the camp battle that if you could be there in Santa Clara every day, you would want to just park yourself and watch these guys battle it out all summer?
Well, who's playing next to Fred Warner? That would be the one I want to watch, because you have
D. Winters or Nick Martin. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have D. Winters, who I thought had some issues last year, but again, he's a guy from OTAs. Maybe he took a step. There were some positive things there, and we've heard a lot of good things about Nick Martin too. Now they certainly reached for him, so they like him. Not many people had him as a third-round pick, so he's somebody that they had their eyes on. So that's a competition I want to see, because you're replacing. I know he didn't play much last season, but Dre Greenlaw was such a huge spark for that defense. He made such a difference when he was in there. And you noticed last year, without him there, the people that they had in there, the struggles that they had with Campbell and Winters and whoever else. So that's the competition I want to see. Who can get a stranglehold on that position, and hopefully one of them can make an impact.
I'm going to say tackle. I love what I saw from Austin Pleasance in minicamp and OTAs. I mean, he is absolutely moving at a speed that I never saw last year. He looks amazing. And then Andre Dillard, I thought, was better in Green Bay than he was in Philly, and he's a former first-round pick, and he's also a pretty good mover. And then you got Spencer Burford, who I think probably is going to have more success at his college position of tackle than he's had thus far as a guard. So I'll say, those three guys are probably battling for maybe one or two spots. I think that tackle competition could be fierce. And let's finish with this one. Give me your bold 49er related prediction on the season ahead. You got a bold Niner prediction. Any direction you want to take this is fine.
Yeah, I hate being negative, but right now my bold prediction, I think they're going to disappoint some people. I think the offense, if it stays healthy, will be good. But we saw last season what a couple injuries could do to it, where they just had trouble scoring points. They had trouble getting big plays. The amount of 20-plus yard touchdowns they had in 2023 versus 2024 was a huge difference. They had a hard time getting big play touchdowns last year. They had a hard time in the red zone. So the offense is going to be good, but one or two things can derail it. And like I said with the defense, I just don't see it with the roster right now. People want to point to the schedule, and I get that, because the schedule looks on the easier side. You never know what teams can turn around and be like, but it does look on the easier side. They can still squeak out a good season. But if some of those teams that you assume are going to be bad aren't bad, the Jaguars, the Colts, teams like that, it could be a disappointing year this year. And when John Lynch comes out and says, we're going to take some lumps, that makes me worried. So I certainly hope that the rookies play well and people stay healthy and they're in the 10-win range or completing for a playoff spot. But there's definitely a chance this year that it can go the other way, and it's a little scary.
All right, this is a bold prediction. I mean, I could go bold. I've already said Garendo's going to have a bust-out year. I could say Garendo and McCaffrey are a two-headed monster, but I'm going to say Tanner Mordecai beats out Mac Jones for the number 2 job, and that the Niners trade Mac Jones at the end of August to another team and go with somebody else as their third-string quarterback and not Mac Jones. Just
okay.
Thought. Just a
thought. Hey, if Mordecai beats him out, there's no point to keep him around, right? So I can see that.
The $5 million third-string quarterbacks don't fly in the NFL.
No
Al,
way.
Awesome stuff, man. We'll do it again soon.
I appreciate you, Larry. Thank you.
Al Sacko, we're coming up next with our stat of the night as we continue with Niners Nightly on the Sports Leader.